She had no idea her first day as a housekeeper would lead her straight into a secret that had been buried for over 2 decades. When Sophia Reyes walked through the doors of the Whitmore estate, an opulent mansion tucked deep in the heart of Texas, she thought she was escaping her past, not walking straight into it. The scent of aged leather and fresh lilies greeted her, along with a silence so heavy it seemed to whisper things she wasn't supposed to hear. But nothing could have prepared her for what she saw hanging above the grand staircase, a large sepia-toned family portrait. Her heart stopped. Staring back at her from the photo was a face she recognized, not from magazines or gossip columns, but from a crumpled childhood photo hidden in a locked drawer back home. How could this be possible? Was the man who hired her, Ethan Whitmore, the reclusive billionaire, actually connected to her family's darkest secret? And more importantly, did he already know who she was? What happens next will unravel a web of lies, betrayal, and a love that defies bloodlines. So buckle up, because this story will leave you breathless till the very last second. It all began with a crash inside Whitmore & Co., a luxurious bistro nestled in the heart of Austin. The wealthy elite sipped aged wine and nibbled on foie gras under soft amber lighting. The music was low, the conversations polished, but that delicate balance shattered when a porcelain plate hit the marble floor. Heads turned. Sophia Reyes, a young waitress with trembling hands and weary green eyes, stood frozen as the broken pieces scattered like fragments of her dignity. Her pale fingers reached for them quickly, but not fast enough to stop the blood from a sharp edge slicing into her palm. The manager, Gordon, charged toward her. His broad figure towered, and his voice sliced through the dining room. "That's the third plate this week, Sophia. That's coming out of your paycheck." Again, Sophia swallowed hard, biting back tears. She couldn't afford to cry, not in front of these people. Not while her mother needed medication she could barely afford with 3 jobs. "I'm sorry, sir," she whispered, clutching her bleeding hand behind her back. The room buzzed with murmurs. One patron pulled out a phone to film the scene. Others stared with discomfort, or worse, amusement. Then a deep, commanding voice rang out from the back of the room. "That's enough." Everyone turned. There, just beyond the polished brass doors of the kitchen, stood a man in a tailored navy suit. His blue eyes were sharp, his jaw set in quiet fury. His name was Ethan Whitmore, billionaire, CEO of the Whitmore Group and owner of the very restaurant where Sophia worked. Gordon froze, color draining from his face. "Mr. Whitmore, I didn't realize you were dining with us tonight." "I wasn't," Ethan said, stepping forward. "I came to check the renovation blueprints. Instead, I found my staff being publicly humiliated. That's not the brand I run." He crouched beside Sophia and gently reached for a shard of porcelain. "You're hurt." Sophia's lips parted slightly. Was this really happening? "I can handle it," she murmured, but her voice trembled. "I'm sure you can," Ethan replied, his tone soft but unwavering. "But let me help anyway." Their fingers brushed as they picked up the last piece. The contact was brief but electric. From above, Gordon cleared his throat. "She's new clumsy. I was just—" "You were disrespectful," Ethan interrupted, standing up and turning to face him directly. "And you'll explain yourself." In private, Gordon nearly stumbled as he scurried off. Ethan turned back to Sophia. "What's your name?" "Sophia. Sophia Reyes." He said it back slowly, almost thoughtfully. "Sophia, don't go anywhere." Then he followed Gordon, leaving behind whispers and stunned stares. 15 minutes later, the manager returned, visibly shaken. Beside him, Ethan stood calm and composed, his hands in his pockets. Sophia, Gordon began tightly. "As of tomorrow, you're being transferred to the Special Events Division. There will be a pay increase. Mr. Whitmore personally recommended the reassignment." "I don't understand," she stammered. "Why me?" before Gordon could respond. Ethan stepped forward and handed her a simple cream-colored card. His name was embossed in gold. "If you have any issues with the transition, call me directly," he said. "Sometimes a mistake is just the beginning of something bigger." With that, he turned and left, his cologne lingering in the air long after he was gone. Back at her modest East Austin apartment, Sophia sat on the worn couch, the card still in her hand. "You're joking," said her roommate Emma, bursting into their living room. "You're telling me Ethan Whitmore, Mr. Ice King, Mr. Billionaire bad boy, just swooped in and saved the day?" "I wouldn't put it that way," Sophia said quietly. He just Helped Emma, gasped girl. He never helps anyone. You know what they say about him, right? He hasn't been the same since his fiancée ran off with his brother. That man built a wall around his heart so high nobody gets in. Sophia tucked the card away in a drawer. It doesn't matter. I won't see him again. Probably just a gesture to avoid a lawsuit or a PR scandal. Emma raised a perfectly arched brow. Are you sure about that? Because across town in a sleek penthouse overlooking the Austin skyline, Ethan Whitmore stood at his window with a glass of bourbon. He didn't usually linger on people, especially not restaurant staff, but something about her stuck with him, those eyes, that strength in her silence. He turned to his assistant Daniel, who had just entered with a tablet. Find out everything you can about a Sophia Reyes? Daniel blinked. You're serious? Ethan didn't blink. Completely. But what was it that drew him in? Was it guilt, intrigue, or something else entirely? And what if Sophia was more than she seemed to be? Continued. We're so sorry to leave you on a cliffhanger, but next part is coming very soon, and trust me, it gets even more intense. But now it's your turn to weigh in. Why do you think Ethan stepped in to defend Sophia? What is he hiding behind that icy stare? Do you think Sophia should trust him or keep her distance from someone so powerful and mysterious? Also tell us in the comments, which country are you watching from? We'd love to know where our stories are reaching. If this story moved you, please give us a like and drop a heart. It really helps more people discover these emotional journeys. The executive office of Whitmore Global buzzed with quiet tension. Floor 20, the company's elite special events division, was a polished world of crystal chandeliers and steel nerves. And right in the center of it stood Sophia Reyes, fighting the urge to fidget under Clara Voss's icy gaze. You'll be assisting with the Whitmore Gala's private lounge, Clara said, voice like a blade. Direct orders from Mr. Whitmore. Sophia's heart raced, Ethan again. Clara's stilettos tapped the marble floor. This is not a romantic novel, Miss Reyes. Don't get comfortable. That afternoon, Sophia reviewed a draft menu in the experimental kitchen. The smell of roasted poblano and citrus filled the air. Her own recipe inspired by her grandmother. She was plating a tasting sample when the door creaked. She didn't have to turn around. I thought you might be here, said Ethan Whitmore, loosening his tie. Sophia straightened. I was just making something incredible. He interrupted, picking up a spoon and tasting the sauce. He closed his eyes. This is nostalgic. For me too, she admitted. My abuela made it when times were hard. I learned to cook because we couldn't afford restaurants, but she said if you can't afford luxury, create it in your kitchen. Ethan stared at her, his voice softer now. My mother was the same. Before she passed, she used to say food was how she spoke love. For a moment, their paths reached across a chasm of class touching, but the moment shattered as the kitchen door opened sharply. Clara. Of course, her gaze flicked between them like a predator watching prey. Mr. Whitmore, the venue manager is waiting for your approval. Ethan sighed. Right, but before he left, he turned to Sophia. Will you be at the final walkthrough tomorrow? I will. Good, I want your input. And he was gone, but the air still held his warmth. And Clara's warning stare. That evening, Sophia returned to the modest apartment she shared with Emma, her fiery red-haired roommate and part-time makeup artist. She kicked off her shoes and collapsed on the couch, but Emma didn't greet her with her usual humor. Instead, she was holding Sophia's phone. You got a weird message. Sophia grabbed it. Her blood ran cold. You can't hide your past forever. Does Ethan know your father is Fernando Juarez, the man who stole millions from the Whitmore Corporation? Her hands trembled. It was the truth, one she had buried for over a decade. Fernando Juarez, her biological father. A man she hadn't spoken to since he was arrested for orchestrating one of the largest corporate frauds in U.S. history. I changed my last name. I never told anyone, she whispered. Emma's face was pale. Someone dug for this Soph. This wasn't random. But who would? Clara, someone from Whitmore's legal department, a jealous rival, and then a far worse question twisted in her chest. What will Ethan do if he finds out? Will he believe I used him? That night, sleep didn't come. She stared at the business card Ethan had given her days earlier, his handwritten note on the back for emergencies or good coffee. Her fingers brushed the paper like it might offer answers. The next day, Sophia arrived at Whitmore Global's gala venue, a sprawling estate outside Austin, Texas. Twinkling lights wrapped every tree, classical music drifted in from the garden rehearsal. The stage was set for perfection, but Sophia felt like a walking fracture. Every time she passed someone, she wondered, do they know? When she entered the tasting hall to confirm the dessert layout, Clara was already there. Well, Clara said smoothly, rumor has it, Mr. Whitmore plans to announce a new culinary venture tonight and feature a certain young chef. Sophia's heart skipped. Clara smiled. Of course, that depends on whether she's the kind of woman a CEO can trust. Sophia tried to brush past her, but Clara's final words stopped her cold. Does he know your real last name is Juarez? Sophia froze. Clara leaned in, her voice honeyed with poison. You should leave quietly. I have the evidence. One press of a button and Ethan's entire board will know you're the daughter of the man who nearly destroyed his company. I didn't choose my father, Sophia said, shaking. No, but you chose to hide it. She ran out into the cool night air, lungs burning. Should she confess everything, now risking her job, her reputation, his trust, or disappear before she ruins the only good thing she's ever had back in the venue? Ethan was finishing a phone call when his assistant approached. She's gone, sir, Sophia. She just left. Ethan's brows furrowed. Why no one had an answer. But something inside him whispered, it wasn't by choice. To be continued. We know that ending left your heart racing, but we promise the final part is worth the wait. In the meantime, tell us, should Ethan confront Clara, suspecting she's behind Sophia's disappearance? Do you believe someone's past should determine their future? Or can love rewrite the story? Let us know where in the world you're watching from. We'd love to hear your city and country. And if this story touched you, please drop a like, share it, and help us keep these emotional journeys going for others too. The moment Ethan Whitmore finished his speech at the gala, applause thundered through the garden, but his heart was somewhere else, lost between fear and fury. He hadn't mentioned the new restaurant venture nor Sophia. Something in her sudden disappearance had pierced through his carefully built defenses, whispering that this wasn't just cold feet, it was sabotage. He turned to Ricardo, his most trusted advisor. Where is she? Ricardo hesitated. Clara spoke to her right before she left. A cold certainty settled in Ethan's chest. He stormed toward the office wing, ignoring greetings, brushing past champagne flutes and camera flashes. In his private office, he found it, a letter, handwritten, folded neatly, just like her. His name was written on the front. Inside, Sophia's truth spilled out in trembling ink about her father, Fernando Juarez, the fraud that wrecked so many lives, including Ethan's family. About the shame, the fear, and why she couldn't bring herself to tell him until it was too late. I thought I could build something honest, she wrote, but it turns out I was still running. The final line shattered him. I love you, Ethan, but I won't be the reason you lose everything. He didn't wait another second. Within hours, his private jet was fueled and headed towards Santa Maria, New Mexico, a dusty town tucked between canyon ridges and childhood ghosts. As dawn broke, Ethan stepped out of the SUV onto a gravel path leading to a small adobe house surrounded by wild sage and hummingbirds. There, wrapped in a worn shawl, sat Sophia, staring into the horizon with eyes swollen from crying. She didn't move as he approached, didn't speak. You left without letting me fight for you, Ethan said quietly. Sophia looked down. I thought I was protecting you. You think I need protection from the only person who's ever made me feel seen? I'm the daughter of the man who tried to destroy your father's company. And my father, Ethan's voice tightened. He manipulated that scandal too, inflated the damages to collect insurance. He profited from it. Sophia, my family isn't as clean as the press thinks. Sophia blinked. You knew. I found out years ago. It broke something inside me. He knelt beside her, but then you came along, with nothing but truth in your eyes and love in your hands. She bit her lip, trying to hold it together. I was terrified you'd see me as a lie. Ethan took her hand. You never lied. You just needed time to trust I'd stay. A breeze passed, rustling the dry leaves. In the silence, he asked, how many of us live caged by the sins of people we had no say in choosing? And then he whispered the words she thought she'd never hear. I love you, not despite your story, because of it. Her tears returned this time not from fear but release. And when he pulled her into his arms, it wasn't a perfect reunion, it was a real one. Messy, raw, earned, that afternoon they walked through the town's market, hand in hand. She showed him where her culinary dreams were born. Her grandmother's old recipe notebook, now tattered and sacred. He shared childhood secrets he'd never told anyone, including the night he found out about his father's cover-up and swore he'd do things differently. By evening, the idea that started as Ethan's business plan had transformed into something bigger. Not his restaurant chain, theirs, and not as a charity or a lifeline, but as a legacy of healing, a place where people with complicated pasts could cook, create, and belong. 6 months later, the first Root and Flame restaurant opened in downtown Austin. Its menu blended Oaxacan spice with modern flair. Its walls told stories of Sophia's journey of community of second chances. On opening night, Sophia wore a deep emerald dress, her eyes brighter than ever. She stood beside Ethan as he raised a toast not to profits, but to purpose. She taught me that scars are proof we survived. He told the guests, and that love isn't about erasing pain, it's about choosing someone who will carry it with you. But the biggest surprise came when he reached into his pocket, dropped to one knee, and opened a small velvet box. Sofia Reyes Juarez, he said, using her full unhidden name. Will you be my forever? Tears spilled down her cheeks as she nodded. Yes, 1,000 times, yes. The restaurant erupted in cheers, but in that moment it felt like only the two of them existed. Two souls who had every reason not to work and every reason to never let go. Because the most powerful stories aren't the ones without conflict, they're the ones that choose love anyway. We're so sorry to pause the story here, but we had to catch our breath from all those emotions. Now it's your turn. Do you think Ethan made the right choice by forgiving Sophia's past, or should he have walked away? Can love truly overcome the legacy of betrayal and trauma, or does the past always leave a stain? And tell us, how do you feel about this story overall? Comment no 1 if it didn't meet your expectations, no 2 if it felt just okay, or no 3 if it truly touched you. We'd love to know what country you're watching from. And if you haven't yet, please hit like, send some love, and share this story with someone who believes in second chances. Your support keeps stories like this alive.